Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Gabe Nelson. Gabe is a certified financial planning professional and the founder of Gabe Nelson Financial, Inc., a registered investment firm that offers fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services to solopreneurs and self-employed professionals throughout the United States. After earning a Bachelor of Science in Economics from South Dakota State University, Gabe immediately entered the financial services industry and has been featured in a Forbes article and hosts the podcast Solopreneur Money and is the best-selling author of the Solopreneur Money Manifesto. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Gabe Nelson.
Thank you, Ed. I'm excited to be here.
Well, first off, Gabe, why do you do what you do, this certified financial planning thing?
That's a great question. The biggest thing is I love helping people. And I came into the industry, like you said, right out of college and morphed into the financial planning, financial advisory side over the years. And what I realized is it's all about relationships. And my whole entire life, I've been about building relationships. I mean, some years I'm better, some years I'm worse, but the long story short is I love the relationships that come from doing what it is that I do.
And you've got a new book out, the Solopreneurs Money Manifesto. So tell me about your new book.
So the Solopreneurs Money Manifesto was written, actually it was born out of the pandemic. It was like, hey, I got a little more time now. I might as well do something like this. But the whole book, the idea is to teach solopreneurs how to master their finances and create the life that they want. And it's broken up into 3 sections. The first section is really getting your mind and your vision and your habits right, because a lot of people go start businesses, solopreneurs, especially start businesses just kind of like, hey, I could do this. So the next thing you know, they have almost an accidental business or an accidental entrepreneurial thing happen, and they don't generally start off with a vision and how do I really want my life to look and what are the mindset and the habits that I need to have. So that's section 1. Section 2 is literally taking people through my financial planning process that I've developed over the last nearly 27 years. And then the third section of the book is a case study. So someone could literally grab the book and follow along and go, all right, that works for me, that doesn't work for me, or hey, I've never thought of that before. Could I use that in my situation? And so that's the quick and dirty version of the book for you.
Well, dive a little bit deeper. Tell me a little bit about your process that you've developed.
Mm-hmm. My process that I've developed over the course of time is I start with a little bit of a touchy-feely thing. And in the book, there's a thing called the life wheel. And anybody that's been in the coaching world will recognize it immediately. And it's how are you living your life? And in multiple sections throughout your life. And I literally just stole this from the coaching world because it was used on me by a coach. I'm like, man, I love that. And so we start with a process of understanding of like, how is our life? How are we really living our life now? How do we want to live our life? And then the process of the financial planning is how can we craft your financial plan to support the life that you want? And so that your business is supporting your life rather than the other way around of your life supporting your business. So the process that I go through is very just kind of methodical. I want to get an understanding of where your cash flow is. Is the money going in or going out, or is there more going out than coming in? And then all the way from that to making sure that you are setting money aside for emergency savings, in your business as well as your personal. And then we work through the process of your investments, your goals and objectives. Do you want to retire at a certain age? Do you need to pay for your kids to go to college? Do we need to make sure that you're protected from the things that you don't think about? Meaning, like if you were to die too early, or if you become disabled, or what should you be doing with your health insurance? And all the way down to how should you be structured as a business to help reduce your tax liability? And what are some of the planning things that you could be doing to reduce your taxes, but build money for retirement and set yourself up to be able to live the life you want? And I even discuss, ways of structuring the business for liability protection, things like that. So I touch on every one of those things, all the way down to being that nag for my clients. Like, hey, we've been talking about getting a will done for 5 years. Would you please go get it done? I mean, I'm going to keep bugging you. So let's just get this thing scheduled and go get your will done. Because a lot of people, they don't like to think about dying, and therefore they don't take that next step.
And of course, there's a lot of things in there that you mentioned that are clearly demographic. You're having kids, they're getting older, they're going to school, so those can be planned for. What about the folks who have a tendency to shift around what their goals are, which would happen from time to time, I imagine? People shift what their next goals are.
Happens all the time. One of the hardest things, and one of the latest topics in the financial advisory circles over the last couple of years is, you sit down with a new client and it's like, well, what are your goals? And they're like, I have no idea. All right, well, help me understand how you want to live your life. And let's start with, how do you want to live your life? And then how can we start to put things in place to reach that? And so what I advise is, let's start to develop those goals as time goes on so that we can start to hone in on them. And the changing goals, the best way I can explain it is, that Fidelity commercial that's been on lately, and you see the couple, they come back in and they go to their advisor and they're like, and the advisor after like the third time says, wait, the plans have changed. Yes, people's plans change. And that's the beautiful thing about the relationship that I referred to a bit ago, of being able to be there along with them and hold their hands and go, all right, well, if plans are going to change, here's the implication of that change. Here's what we need to do to make sure that you're still going to be okay and still on pace to achieve your goals.
And we have an exit question, Gabe, that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours and why are they a hero?
I listened to your podcast and I've been struggling with this, like, who's my hero and who should it be? And I keep coming back around to my grandfather, who died quite a few years ago. But he taught me, without realizing it, a lot about who I am today. He was an entrepreneur. He was really a very well-read individual. So he was reading the books. I heard a story my dad just told me not too long ago, that when my grandfather left the farm with an 8th grade education, he went in and he started selling seed for a farm supply, company in this little small town in Iowa, and quickly became their number one salesperson. And my dad told me that I could still remember seeing him as a kid, when my dad was a kid, downstairs reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, he was reading those way back then. And it's amazing. A lot of the things that I do today, I got from him, from being around him as a kid, and very, very similar. So I have to go to my Grandpa Lloyd as being my hero and the reason why.
And lastly, Gabe, how can somebody contact you?
The best way is the Solopreneur Money Manifesto is my book. You can find that on Amazon. You can go to GabeNelsonFinancial.com. That's my website for my registered investment advisory firm. I have a podcast called Solopreneur Money, and there's a website called solopreneurmoney.com that has my book, my podcast, my YouTube. And the last place you can also find me is LinkedIn, Gabe Nelson, CFP.
All right. And we will put links to all of those in the description of this episode. Gabe Nelson, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.